They said she was too much, too ambitious, too outspoken, too different. But all she wanted was what she had earned, a promotion that was long overdue. Tanya Williams, a black woman in her early 30s, walked into her office that morning with a heart full of hope. She had put in late nights, weekends, and endless sacrifice for the company. Everyone whispered the same thing. This time it's hers. She's the obvious choice. The position of regional manager had opened after years of waiting. It wasn't just a promotion, it was recognition, proof that her hard work mattered. But when the announcement came, the entire office froze. The boss, Mr. Harris, stood proudly in front of the staff and handed the promotion to someone else. Not Tanya. Not the woman who had doubled profits, solved impossible problems, and carried the team through crisis after crisis. He handed it to Brad, an inexperienced man who had been at the company less than a year. Tanya's heart sank. Her colleagues glanced at her, their eyes full of disbelief. But no one dared to speak. And then, as if to twist the knife deeper, Mr. Harris smirked and said, "Some people just don't fit the image we want for leadership." Tanya kept her face calm, but inside she was on fire. She knew what he meant. She had heard it before, in different words, in different tones. She wasn't the right fit because she was a black woman in a world that didn't want her at the top. That night, she sat alone at her kitchen table, replaying every moment. The humiliation, the whispers. Her daughter's picture stared back at her from the fridge. Tanya whispered, "I can let this be the lesson she learns, that no matter how hard you work, someone else gets to decide your worth." Instead of giving up, Tanya began planning. Not revenge, not anger, something smarter. Something that would expose the truth without her ever raising her voice. She started collecting receipts, emails where her boss had taken credit for her ideas, reports she had written that Brad had copied, client feedback praising her by name, late-night timestamps proving she was the one carrying the load while others slept. For weeks, Tanya quietly built her case. At the same time, she sharpened her skills. She took online leadership courses, networked with executives outside her company, and polished her presence until there was no denying she was a leader. And then, the opportunity came. The company's biggest client announced a high-stakes presentation, one that could either secure a multi-million-dollar deal or cost the company its future. Mr. Harris, smug as always, put Brad in charge. But Brad panicked. He had no idea how to handle the complexity of the deal. Desperate, he turned to Tanya. "Tanya," he whispered one night, "could you maybe help me prepare?" She looked at him, calm and steady. "Don't worry, Brad. I'll make sure it's flawless." And she did. Tanya worked night after night, crafting a presentation that would blow the client away. But she did one thing her boss didn't expect. She signed her work. Every slide carried her name subtly in the footer. Every document traced back to her login. The day of the presentation, Brad stood in front of the clients, rehearsed lines dripping from his mouth. But then the questions came. Deep, technical questions. Complex strategy concerns. Brad froze. The clients shifted uncomfortably. Millions of dollars were about to walk out the door. And then Tanya, seated quietly in the back, raised her hand. "Perhaps I can clarify," she said. For the next 30 minutes, she owned the room. Every answer precise, every point compelling. The clients leaned forward, impressed. They nodded, smiled, clapped. At the end, the lead executive stood and said, "If Tanya is part of this team, you have our business." The deal was saved, not by Brad, not by Harris, but by the woman they had refused to promote. Back at the office, Harris was furious. He pulled Tanya aside, his voice dripping with condescension. "You embarrassed us. You made Brad look weak." Tanya simply handed him a folder. Inside were months of proof. Her work, her reports, client testimonials, the truth. And at the bottom, a resignation letter. I won't fight for a seat at a table that was never meant for me, she said. I'll build my own. Within weeks, Tanya launched her own consulting firm. The very clients she had impressed followed her. Word spread quickly in the industry. The genius who saved the deal was no longer chained to Harris Yes Company. Her business grew faster than she could have imagined. Soon, she wasn't just leading a team. She was employing dozens, mentoring young women of color, and building the kind of workplace where talent, not prejudice, defined success. Meanwhile, Harris's company began to crumble. Without Tanya's brilliance, deals slipped through their fingers. Brad, unprepared and insecure, failed repeatedly. Clients pulled out. Revenues collapsed. 1 year later, Harris's company was gone. Tanya stood in her new office, sunlight pouring through the windows. Her daughter, now old enough to understand, asked, "Mom, why did you leave your old job?" Tanya smiled. "Because sometimes when they refuse you a seat at the table, you build your own table. And when you do, they'll wish they had treated you differently." That night, Tanya walked past a mirror. For a moment, she remembered that day, the smirk on Harris's face, the humiliation of being told she wasn't the right fit. And then she smiled, because the loop was complete. The very rejection that was meant to break her had built the foundation of her empire. This is more than just Tanya's story. It's a reminder that genius doesn't come from titles or promotions. It comes from refusing to let others define your worth. Comment, respect, if you believe dignity always wins. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that matter. And remember, sometimes the greatest success begins with the word no.